Topic B, setting up and experiencing Python. Now, what we're going to be doing here is essentially getting a hands-on experience. So first of all, we're going to install PyCharm. There's going to be a video showing you how to do that. I'm also going to be looking at the arrangement of PyCharm, the font size, and basic customizations that you can do. Next, we're going to experience coding in the interactive shell. Now, interactive shell is a special thing that Python has, where you type in one line of code and that executes, and then you basically can test out different lines and functions. After that, we're going to run and execute a simple program or script. And finally, we're going to run and execute a program, which is a dynamic script. So basically, you're going to type the file name on the command line, and you're even going to type in some arguments, which is quite handy. So let's get into that. Hi, in this video, I'm going to show you how to download and install PyCharm. So all you need to do is just search for PyCharm, and you're going to get this PyCharm Python IDE for professional developers. Now, when on the site, there's going to be a download section, so download now. And there is a professional and there is a community edition. So free and open source community edition, this is the one that we're going to use. That's going to ask you to download it somewhere and pick a folder and download it. So once it's done installing, by the way, I'm using Windows computer, so the process for Mac might slightly deviate from this. You're going to be asked, will you allow the app to make some changes? You're going to say fine, next. So this is it, destination folder. I mean, I prefer to just install things that I want to run directly on the C drive of this computer. So I can maybe just make a new folder in C, call it PyCharm, and have it install right there. So I'll go next. Create associations. You may want to tick this. Basically, that means that automatically every .py file is going to get opened by PyCharm. Since I'm using other IDEs for other projects, I'm not going to click that, but I recommend that you do. So JetBrains install. And so, you know the usual process. So once we're done, you can open run and click finish. You do not need to import settings. It comes up with this customized PyCharm. So by all means, you can read this in your own time. It comes up with certain latest plugins that you may wish to install and enable. I will just run straight up PyCharm without any of those. Okay, well, that's the installation. So at this point, we can just create a new project. And we're going to go into the C folder where we have PyCharm. And in here, we can create a subfolder. And we're going to call it projects. And that's what we're going to use. So create. So it's going to give you a prompt to show tips on startup. By all means, check those out in your own time, but we can just close that. So inside this interface, there is a number of things that you can do to interact with Python. You can run a Python console, which is essentially an interactive shell where you can write some Python code and that can execute. So it essentially echo whatever you say, 25. So essentially, you can do that. You can open up a terminal, and from the terminal, you can run and execute Python files, of which we don't have yet none. And you can, inside there, you can basically create a new Python file, name it test. And you can write a little program and execute that. Hello world. So there is a play button for projects, which is right. And that's the output of the project. In this video, what we're going to do is have a look at the Python interactive shell feature. So you can find this feature by clicking on the Python console, which is another way to call the interactive shell. So all you need to do is click here, and an instance of the interactive shell is going to open. You can sort of make it smaller, bigger, you can pop it out or maximize it. We're going to use it maximized. Now, for my taste, this font is a bit small, and the way you can change that is go into the File, Settings, and there is a search function here. So if we just type in font, we should be able to change it. So if we say 16 here, I think that's going to work quite well for us. And there you have it. Now, the Python interactive shell for testing out just individual expressions, functions, various code snippets from your program that you're not quite sure how they work or what they evaluate to. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So in terms of simple expressions, I mean, you can type in a number and that just evaluates to itself. You can do some arithmetic, 135 plus. You can type in string expressions. This is nice. But basically anything that doesn't evaluate to something that the Python interpreter can understand, like this is not a string, it's not under quotation marks, it's not a standard keyword, and you will basically get a not defined error message. So let's do a couple of examples that include some variables and perhaps some arithmetic. So let's make up some variables. Let's say x equals to 10, y equals to bob, and now we can do some operations with x and y. We can say x plus 5, that's addition, x times 12, that's multiplication, x slash 2 is division. See, 5.0 basically gives you evaluates to a floating point. Maybe we can even do x times y, and that is that string multiplied 10 times. By the way, you can also add strings, so you can basically say y plus is cool, Bob is cool. But you can come up with some interesting error messages. So like, for example, if we say x plus y, so that's not going to work. So for example, let's say you wanted to print integer and string on the same line, you could say print x plus y, and that's still going to be an error message. But there's a very, very neat feature of Python where you do not have to concatenate basically strings onto one string variable in order to print it. You can print strings and integers side by side, for example, like this, print x, y, and there you go. So as you can see, when you're getting introduced to Python and you're beginning to just play with very, very basic operators and variables, the interactive shell is probably the best place to be. So that's all for this one. In the next tutorial, we're going to make a Python program and execute